Um, First and foremost, I just wanted to make sure that I pronounce your last name right. So it's Xavier Reyes.
Ayral.
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 Ayral. Perfect.
Okay, Ayral. Okay. I thought it was that. I just wanted to make sure because I don't want to get anything wrong.
Don't worry, you know the first one. It's a French name and it's not easy.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm just gonna ask you a couple of questions. I think, what is it, Chelsea, like how long is it? 15, 20 minutes? Yeah, like 15, 20 minutes. So yeah, I mean, you can answer as long and lengthy as you want, or you could go, if it's just short, you could always do that as well.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I'm just making sure I'm like all good. Are you ready?
I'm prepared, ready to go.
All right, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna just start with like our introduction and everything. So okay. So welcome to AM Writer's Block. In this series, we speak to our favorite authors at Austin Macaulay about their books, inspiration, and more. I'm your host, Aaliyah, and I will be joined by today's guest, Xavier Reyes-Ayral.
Good morning. Hello.
Xavier, thank you so much for joining us on AM Writer's Block. You have published a really successful book with Austin Macaulay called Revelations. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very proud of this book and very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am a Frenchman, married to an American, lovely American lady. I have two little Franco-American munchkins, and I'm Catholic, obviously. And I decided to almost do a Knight of Columbus, 4th degree and Grand Knight of my council. It's the only order of chivalry recognized by the Vatican in the United States. The others are also the Knights of Malta, the Knights of Rhodes, the Knights of Saint-Jean de Jérusalem, les Hospitaliers de Jérusalem, and of course the Knights of Columbus. So that gives you an idea about me. I began to be involved in Marian apparition sites and their study since my late 20s. And I did work for some time with world-renowned abbot, later to become Msgr, René Laurentin. The Americans used to call him the foremost expert in Marian apparition sites in the world. Whenever there was an alleged Marian apparition site or apparition of any sort, the local bishops or archbishops used to call upon him to verify. And he was instrumental, if not the deciding or cornerstone, of the approval of the apparition site of San Nicolas in Argentina, Betania in Venezuela, Kibeho in Rwanda, Soufanier in Syria, and an arch defender of the apparition case of Msgr in Bosnia today. So this is not my first book. I published in France, in Italy, and in Switzerland, 2 other books related to the Marian apparition sites with the assistance of Msgr René Laurentin. When Msgr René Laurentin passed away in 2017, 100 years after the apparitions of Fatima, I decided to pursue this interest of mine, particularly for one reason. First of all, because I never thought that Providence would take me across the Atlantic to start a life up here. And my life was traced in France. And I met my future wife, I had 2 extraordinary children that I totally adore. And for me, I was very grateful to circumstances. And while being still in touch with contacts in France, in Europe, with Marian apparition circles, shall we say, and within the Catholic Church, I thought it would be an ideal way to say merci, to say thank you to God, to divine providence, for the extraordinary life that I've led till today, and the wonderful family that God has granted me.
I love that. I
hope that
love that. How long have you been in America then?
I've been here, since in a permanent manner, since I was married to my wife in 2006.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Back and forth across the Atlantic since I was a teenager. I came here originally on vacation. And so I was very aware and familiar with the United States, although I learned English mostly in Europe. But all in all, I love the United States. I love the American spirit. And I've decided finally to leave France for the United States, for my family here, my new France, you could say. My France are my two munchkins and my wife, of course, my brother, who did exactly the same thing. Well, actually, he did it before I did. And voila, that's how Providence took me here and allowed me to work, to do this sort of work.
That's amazing. That's so wonderful. Have you been back to France in a little bit? Has it been a little bit?
I have. Unfortunately, the situation in France right now has made it so that there are tensions that makes me totally not recognize my own home country. I was born in Normandy, and I was growing up, I studied with the Jesuits in Paris, a time of when Paris was still peaceful, when France was peaceful. Now the tensions in France are getting very, very difficult. And not just in France, I would say throughout Europe. I come from a long time family involved in the French army. Every generation, my family has always worn the uniform, taken arms for the colors. And when we see what Europe has become today, as I said, I was very disappointed. I was disillusioned. No, as I said, I calculate my words carefully when I say that now my new France are my children, my wife, of course, my children to whom I teach French history, and to whom I'm passing a torch, you could say, of the past, of something. I'm teaching them not to forget what should always be unforgettable. The sacrifices of yesteryears, the sacrifices of our fathers. Otherwise, it would be vain. And in a way, this book I wrote has to do a great deal about that, in the sense that heaven, or those who believe, as I do as a Catholic man, that heaven has sent a message, an urgent message of conversion to humanity, which is distinguishing less and less clearly every day the border between decency and indecency, right and wrong, black and white, correction, nobility, and mediocrity. Now, that is why I decided to take upon myself this endeavor, simply to echo a message which was not always convenient, particularly for the Roman Catholic Church. Some messages of which come from approved apparitions sites, which really is truly a paradox, a contradiction of sorts. And yet, some of these messages, which I reveal in my book, have been rediscovered in some occasions simply by sheer accident. Now, an example among which is that of La Salette, approved in 1846, an apparition that took place in 1846 in the mountains of the French Alps to two young children, shepherds, with an education equal practically to zero. And all of a sudden, these extraordinary revelations are echoed by two children that come from the middle of nowhere and make complete sense, and are in perfect linear synchronization with a dogma of the faith, which is quite difficult to read, to adapt, to absorb. And yet, this is why God has chosen these children, not just in La Salette, but in Fatima and in other places, so that actually the impossible would finally be explained. It would give them, shall we say, a print of credibility, belligerence. And I would like simply to say that the Catholic Church's objective, whenever they have or wherever they are confronted with an alleged apparition site, their primary mission is to try to torpedo them. It is their duty. Because in their frame of mind, the Catholic Church has been founded by Jesus Christ upon Peter. This is not a question of faith, it's a question of history. And as such, the Catholic Church believes that with this authority, they have been given the capability to discern the truth from a lie. Because according to Father Laurentin, if it comes from God, if an endeavor, if an apparition site truly comes from God, and many do not, but if some do come from God, there is nothing on earth that either man, angel, or church can do to torpedo it or destroy it. However, the church has received indeed the authority through St. Peter to discern untruth. That is why, among other things, the Catholic Church, along with the Copt and the Orthodox Church, are the only three churches known to man to be able to exorcise. Or indeed, some of the messages of the Virgin Mary that I'm relating in this book echoes a message which states that, yes, my son is real, God exists, but so does the enemy of God, the devil. And one of his objectives, according to the Blessed Virgin Mary, is to make man believe that he does not. So the messages, as you see, are many. And one of the reasons why the Catholic Church has hidden so purposely and calculatively some of these messages is because it even points fingers at the Catholic Church, at clergy. And despite of the fact that some of these messages have been approved officially and formally by the Catholic Church, some of those messages are not convenient. They do not just relate upon the faults and the errors that have been committed by clergy, but they give an immense volume of prophecies, the great, immense majority of which have become true already. And it is what is to come that concerns me. And the purpose of this call, of this book, of this video, is to echo not a message of fright, but a message of hope and a call to urgent conversion. And that was the purpose of this endeavor that took me approximately more or less 3 years to finish and to publish, thanks to your most kind help.
And did your experience with the pandemic push you to write this book?
Yes, indeed. This pandemic, remarkably enough, was foretold way before it happened. I will tell you a secret that you will not repeat. And the secret is this. One of the apparitions in La Fraudet in France mentioned that in these particular times we're living, France would also send its troops. Now remember, before I continue, these messages came at the end of the 19th century, in a time when none of these prophecies made any sense. It appeared at the time to be sheer rubbish. Now, notwithstanding, the messages said that the time will come when France, among other nations, will send its troops in Occidental and Central Africa and would be combating radical Islamic forces. But at the same time, French army, in the same time, would be sending some of its troops in Eastern Europe. Blast, I thought to myself, if I write this, I'm going to lose total credibility. This was before the Ukrainian war and way after the situation in Yugoslavia, in ex-Yugoslavia. So I was very tempted, to my shame, to eliminate that part of those messages because I thought it would take a credibility. And then I thought to myself, if I do something like that, it would be nothing short of a lie, of omission. And I decided, à la grâce de Dieu, at the grace of God, let's place myself at the feet of the cross and let God's will be done. No. So I wrote it. Great was my surprise when on February the 24th, the Russian army crossed the Ukrainian borders and started the most severe military conflict that Europe has seen since 1945, less than 3 hours away from Paris by plane. This is the first in Europe since 1945. It's of the utmost gravity. I watch here at home French television because I get more information here than the American TV, which, as I said, I love the United States. My children are half American, makes me an American at heart, no? But the Americans do not, from what I see, weigh the gravity of the situation in Europe as the Europeans do. We are very, very close from a situation which is only a finger or two from a third world war. The situation is very grave, no light in sight at the end of the tunnel. The Russians and the Ukrainians are very stubborn both and refuse any form of compromise. And that's what the Virgin Mary in this book, in those messages has talked. This would be a catalyst to events that are yet to come.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like we don't cover as much as we should over here. And it makes sense that you're watching a different news outlet to like get that information, because I'm sure that they're sharing tons more on what's going on.
Yes. To give you an example, they showed on the French TV a couple of weeks ago an excerpt of what a national news TV channel in Russia was showing. And this was frightening. They showed a simulation on a computer showing some missiles, not supersonic, hypersonic, going at approximately Mach 10, Mach 11, from Russian territory, reaching Berlin in quote unquote 202 seconds, in the same amount of time to Paris, and 212 seconds, London. Now, I've never seen this except here in the United States, but in France, they replayed it, and in Germany as well, in the BBC as well, in the Italian and Spanish and European different TV channels. It made all the newspapers and all the TV channels. Here, not one word. No. I understand. I'm not criticizing the Americans. As I said, I love the Americans. For me, it's my second home. I live here. As I said, my family is half American. This said, the times we live now, and that is what the message that are echoed in this book, call humanity to an urgent conversion, very much like in Fatima in 1917. Remarkably enough, for those who are not familiar, for those who are watching this video and are not familiar with the apparitions of Fatima, try to imagine the following. 1917. At the end, well, at the time it appeared to be the middle of World War I. Russia, being out of breath, collapsed on its knees and signed a humiliating armistice with the Kaiser in Germany and with the Central Powers. Russia became nothing more but a huge vast of land made of an army of Cossacks, half of the time drunk and barely able to ride horses. Russia, after this war, became nothing less but a third world country. And yet the war was raging on in Europe. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of casualties on both sides of the war. All of a sudden, about 1,000 kilometers southwest of the front, a little village called Fatima, in honor of the daughter of a Muslim sultan who at the time conquered the Iberia Peninsula. Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to three little children, to three little shepherds who barely knew their A's or their B's. All of a sudden, the Virgin Mary teaches them the importance of praying to God and to pray to the church, the only church instituted and founded by Christ upon Peter. The Virgin teaches them the importance of the true presence of Christ in the Holy Sacrament of the Eucharist, through the piece of bread and the chalice of wine, and tells them that God has sent her to humanity as the new St. John the Baptist, the new messenger of heaven, shall we say, to echo an admonition. The Virgin said and showed to the children that three secrets, first and foremost. one of which, the version said, would lead man to a second world war even worse than this first one, which according to her was about to finish. The children thought that the name of Russia was the name of a lady. They had no idea what Russia meant. And yet they continued to echo those messages. And the version said to the children, tell my children that they must convert through prayer, mass, the leaving of the holy sacraments instituted by the Catholic Church, instituted and who've received the keys of heaven by Christ through Peter and being apostolic from Peter all the way to the Pope of the time. Otherwise, the Second World War will start under the reign of a new Pope called Pius XI and would cause more casualties than the First World War. From there, the version added, Russia, after this Second World War, will spread her errors if humanity does not convert, as requested. And what happened? Now, the last apparition of Fatima was on October 13th, 1917. And the great miracle of the sun, before 70,000 people, the great majority of which did not believe in the apparition of the children. They just were there for sensationalism. Freemasons were there. Atheists, agnostics, to poke fun at those poor, three little children were there. And they all witnessed the extraordinary, quote unquote, miracle of the sun. They even reported it. In my book, I have the copy of the article of a Freemasonic magazine in Lisboa, which related, in all honesty, what they saw, incapable to explain it scientifically. What happened afterwards? 1 month later, after the last apparition in Fatima, the great revolution in Russia took place. The Romanov imperial family was in its entirety executed, and came a fratricide war, which led Lenin and later Stalin to take over and to become one of the most powerful and tyrannical regime the world has ever known. So the message took place, the Second World War took place, and the new Pope called indeed Pius XI. The war began with a civil war in Spain, where for the first time since the end of World War I, troops of the Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS were fighting openly against the Allied troops. This hadn't been seen since the First World War. A few years later, we all know what happened. The invasion of Poland on September 1939, the invasion afterwards of Denmark, Norway, Holland, Belgium, France. The Second World War began, exactly as the Virgin Mary decreed it. And the great remorse that the Catholic Church has today is not to have been able, not to have echoed properly the admonition of heaven through the Virgin Mary as she asked. Furthermore, it was still the matter of the third secret, which was not revealed. And according to the Virgin Mary, this third secret of Fatima, which by the way I have in its entirety in this book, this third secret was supposed to be revealed openly, publicly to the world, either at the moment of death of Sister Lucia dos Santos, the only surviving visionary of Fatima, or no later than 1960, just at the very beginning of the Second Vatican Council. What happened in 1960? The Pope, John the 23rd, received two envelopes. One, which both were written, of course, by Sister Lucia dos Santos. The first one was the vision which she received, which was openly divulged on June of the year 2000 by the Vatican. Nothing to reproach, nothing to say. It was faithful reproduction of that part of the third secret of Fatima. However, the Church, I regret to say, lied and said that there was no more. That is a lie. There was a second envelope which Lucia dos Santos wrote of about 25 lines, which was the accompanying message of the Virgin Mary to the vision. And that message is reproduced in this book. And when one reads it, and I beg your pardon, my English is not exactly the Queen's, but I hope you understand me. But when one reads this third secret, the second half of the third secret of Fatima, what the Italians call il quarto segreto di Fatima, no? The fourth secret of Fatima, one would understand. The gravity of this message is frightful. It talks of an antichrist walking amidst the cardinals in Rome and reaching the top of the church, the position of the church. Mention of a third world conflict, which can be delayed. In mention of cardinals turning against cardinals, bishops against bishops, an open civil war within the Roman Catholic Church. But at the end, the version puts and stipulates and puts emphasis over and over again on the fact that at the end, her Immaculate Heart will triumph. She explained that Christ, her son, wanted to have her not be revered. She's not a part of the Holy Trinity. She's she's man's best intercessor. No. And a lot of particular Protestants will say, we do not need the Virgin Mary. We can go straight to Christ. In Cana, all of us that are Catholic, Christians rather, will remember that in Cana, Christ performed his very first miracle. And what's more, in a time that was not his to perform. In Cana, you will remember, in the wedding of Cana, they had no more wine. And so the servants came to see the host. The Blessed Virgin Mary heard the complaint that made by the servants to the host that there was no longer any wine. So the Virgin Mary approached our Lord Jesus Christ and told him, my son, they have no more wine. And Christ responded, and what business is this of mine, mother? My time has not yet come. And the Virgin Mary turned towards the servant and said, do everything that he tells you. This is no difference, different times. The Virgin Mary today tells us, do everything my son tells you. And Christ, despite of the fact that his time to perform miracles did not come, nonetheless performed his first miracle as per the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary. That is why we Catholics have often recourse to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and not just because, beg your pardon, not just because of the fact that she appears, but because history, because our faith, because the New Testament of the Bible tells us that we can, that we did, and that we can do it again. This is what this book reflects. It is not an ultimatum, not at all. It is a message through various apparition sites, beginning with La Salette, approved by the Catholic Church, following by Tilly in Normandy, my home country, approved by the Catholic Church, followed by Fatima, approved by the Catholic Church, followed by Akita in Japan through Sister Sasagawa, approved by the Roman Catholic Church, and other apparition sites as well, which are still under investigation, such as Garabandal in Spain, Medjugorje in Croatia, which have not been condemned and are still under investigation, although with Medjugorje, right now, incredibly enough, and despite the open and public hostility of Pope Francis against Medjugorje, the Dicasterium of the Faith, or the Congregation of the Faith, has allowed for pastors and pastors of parishes to organize supported parish pilgrimages to Medjugorje. That's the one step before formal recognition. I've been to Medjugorje myself. What I've seen is extraordinary. I had a personal matter which to this I can't explain, but which for me was a sign, which by the way I asked. There's been millions of conversions over there from people of all sorts. And the message of the Virgin Mary there is this: whether you're Muslim or whether you are Jewish, Orthodox, Catholic, or Protestant, God loves all his children equally. No, but the truth is only but one. And with our faith, charity, tolerance, love for our enemy, forgiveness, must be the fundamental lance peak of our doctrine. No? And that is what this message brings forth. It's a message of hope, but also an urgent message of conversion. For the Virgin says always, yes, my son is a God of mercy, but he's also a God of justice.
All right. And Xavier, I just have another question for you. I just wanted to ask, what's next for you?
What's next for me? You're talking in matters of work?
Of work, yeah, absolutely.
I'm very tempted to start another book, which would be a follow-up to this one. This time, it would be considerably less thick. And I'm in touch with already other visionaries that are truly extraordinary, some of which I started mentioning in chapter 10. No. So they've not been approved yet, except for one, which has the approval of and support of a bishop. I'm very tempted to start writing this book and very possibly address myself again to Austin Macaulay to help me publish it, if you're so inclined to proceed with me. Right now, as we speak, I'm working on the French translation of this book. My wife, heroically, with the 570 pages of written of books, has decided to take the endeavor to translate this in Spanish as well. So I'm attacking 3 different fronts, but I'm all seriously thinking of writing this book. I have an immense amount of material, so it would go considerably faster than this one, which took me about a little less than 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's what's next for the time being.
That's awesome. That is great to hear. And this is just the last question that we have, and then we're gonna, close out. But as you know, the title of our vlog that we have going on here is AM Writer's Block. So, do you believe writer's block is real? And if you do, have you experienced it?
No, I have not experienced it. I believe it is real. Everyone is different. I find my inspiration, and it's going to sound very likely, fanaticism to some and faith to others. I find my inspiration through prayer. I maintain a very cool head, serenity, and I choose very carefully who I speak about these things, because not everyone will understand. No? But I found myself in the faith that I have in Christ, in the church, in the sacraments of the Catholic Church, immense source of inspiration. I always place myself before writing at the foot of the cross. And I tell myself an old saying that French knights in the Middle Ages used to say to themselves, à la grâce de Dieu, at the grace of God. No? So for me, this is my answer. I never had the misfortune to have that kind of block, because I place myself unconditionally in the hands of God and in God through the Virgin Mary. I think that's the best answer I can give you.
Thank you so much, Xavier, for chatting with us on AM Writer's Block. It was so nice to have you, and so nice to put a face to a name. And
likewise.
Yeah, so if you guys would like to purchase Revelations, please just log on to austinmacaulay.com. The link will be below. Okay. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And my best to all of you.
Thank you.